If West does not step up, Putin's war machine will continue to grow stronger. Wall Street Journal. Russia's military superiority over Ukraine will continue to grow if Western countries do not quickly step up, the Wall Street Journal writes, citing an intelligence official. Moscow's invasion of Ukraine has suddenly made Europe aware of the need to maintain large, capable armies. European intelligence officials say Russia is preparing for conflict with NATO within the next decade and aims to have a standing army of 1.5 million by the end of 2026. The publication says it is indicated that Putin previously called warnings about a potential Russian attack on NATO member countries complete nonsense. However, in early 2022, the Kremlin used similar language to ridicule American warnings that Russia was planning to invade Ukraine. The Wall Street Journal recalls that German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius warned that Europe must prepare for a possible war with Russia by the end of the decade. He also called the abolition of conscription in Germany in 2011 a mistake, adding that it should be reintroduced. Sweden, with the exception of a short break in the 2010s, has relied on conscription to fill its army for more than a century. This year, of the approximately 100,000 young Swedes expected to enlist, only 6,200 completed conscription, meaning the annual increase was just over 10%. The country aims to recruit 8,000 conscripts next year and 10,000 shortly thereafter. Selection is based on physical and mental fitness, IQ tests, and motivation to serve. The article notes, it is reported that draft evasion in Sweden is punishable by a fine or imprisonment for up to a year. Let's remember that Business Insider previously concluded that Russia, it seems, after 2 years of large-scale invasion, has begun to take war seriously. They pointed out that Putin's war machine looks very different today than it did at the start of the conflict. The Russian defense industrial base is running at full capacity, and Putin recently appointed an economist as his defense minister to stimulate mass production of weapons. Last summer, Moscow stopped the counter-offensive of Ukraine with a strong defense while rebuilding supplies and transitioning to a wartime economy. French oppression continues in New Caledonia. Paris sends additional troops to the archipelago. French President Emmanuel Macron decided to send additional army units to New Caledonia, where mass protests against the colonial policies of Paris continue. As the French television channel BFM TV reports, citing sources in the Élysée Palace, Macron's decision was supported by the French Defense Council, while the number of military personnel expected to be sent to the islands in the Pacific Ocean was not specified. According to the official wording, military personnel will be used to protect public buildings. Earlier, the French authorities declared a state of emergency in New Caledonia due to mass protests by representatives of the indigenous population of the islands, the Kanaks. Their speeches are related to the fact that Paris passed a law according to which non-indigenous French residents of the islands are allowed to participate in elections in this colony. To do this, it is enough to live in New Caledonia for at least 10 years. Currently, clashes between protesters against French colonialism and the police and French military continue in New Caledonia. The vast majority of indigenous people want New Caledonia to gain independence from France. New Caledonia has the richest nickel deposits, about 25% of the world's proven reserves. In addition, New Caledonia has deposits of chromium, cobalt, manganese, silver, gold, lead, and copper ores. About 30 organizations active in the Pacific region issued a joint statement protesting the atrocities committed by the French government against civilians in New Caledonia. The document notes France's failure to manage the decolonization process and requires the intervention of the UN and the leaders of the Pacific countries. It is emphasized that the cause of the unrest was the attempt of the French government to change the electoral law in New Caledonia by force. In recent months, Kanak leaders have repeatedly called for the withdrawal of a proposed constitutional amendment to local election laws that threatens indigenous people's right to self-determination and jeopardizes the ongoing peaceful dialogue about the future status of the territory, the statement said.